A little video update on the SEC. Good news is we got oil pressure. We got oil up in here. You know, this thing's, the oil filter's all full. And basically what the issue was, what I had to do is I took off the oil pan, checked the oil pump, everything was fine. And I ended up taking this off, the whole oil filter housing. And this is my spare one. And I took it all apart. You know, the gasket was fine, everything. And all I did was pull this out. This is the pressure relief valve, so this has to open up to allow pressure to go through into the main gallery here, up, and then, you know, out into the engine. And I don't know, I guess it was just gummed up with something. There's just a bit of sludge in there. I took it apart and put it back together, and ever since then it was fine. You know, as soon as I started cranking, building oil pressure, good to go. So that's nice. You know, I was cranking it, didn't hear any kind of bearing slapping or anything, but it's not firing still. So why is it not firing? I got a huge mess trying to diagnose this thing. Why is it not firing? As you can see, I got a fuel pressure gauge here, inlet pressure. So there's a supply pressure and control pressures here. So this is to the cold start injector. I have 5.2 bar here. I know it should be at 6.4 bar. So there's one thing that's wrong, but it should still fire up. The symptoms are basically as soon as you start cranking it, it'll cough, start for like, you know, maybe half a second. And basically it sounds like it runs out of fuel. I know it has spark for sure, because as you keep cranking, if you spray ether in the neck, it'll fire up again until the ether runs out. I know the pumps are good, brand new Bosch pumps, blah, 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 they turn on. If you jump the fuel pump relay, you know, on, what is it, pin 87 and 30, then you do get the pumps running continuously, you do get fuel. However, I spoke with a couple of people on the Polish 126 forums. They know these vehicles very well. And basically one of the folks told me, you know, take all these off. As you bridge the fuel pump, as you crank it, and or not even with the cranking, just as your pump is bridged, and as you start depressing this throat over here, you should see fuel level rising in all these columns evenly. I only have a tiny little bit of fuel here. In fact, like, they're just filling up now. They just seep through. That's why every time you let it sit about 10 minutes, you can get it to crank and cough again for a couple of turns, but it just runs out of fuel. Whatever's here, it gets, you know, kind of sucked in. And that's about it. That's all that's happening. Actually, I think maybe it's just the PCV. That's what's happening through this cold start injector. That's the only thing that's really making it start originally. So I have fuel here and here. There's a little inlet filter that's supposed to be here, but mine was all corroded when I got the car, so I threw it out. And probably that's what started my problems, because probably it sucked in some junk in the fuel line, and it is blocking from the main inlet. There's a control piston in here, and it's got outlets everywhere. So remember, I rebuilt this guy, and yeah, you know, it needs to be calibrated, but I'd expect it to at least run. And I did have it idling for about a minute or two. Back in the summer last year. So the issue is it's not getting any fuel from the inlet past the control piston into the fuel delivery chambers. So, you know, best thing would be to buy or rebuild one of these units, but I ain't spending $1,000 on this. This car's not worth it. And I don't really know anyone with these, and people still want $1 million for used units. So right now, at this very moment, all I'm going to do is pop this guy off and start taking it apart, see if I can blow some air here and here, see if I can get anything to come out of it. I know there was an issue on that main control piston. There's like a screen, a plastic screen. I had to reuse that to maintain spacing on the two O-rings. And when I spoke to a few suppliers in Germany, they do not make that plastic basket anymore. Mine was cracked. So I'm wondering if, you know, if the pressure, original pressure feeding it in and then taking the pressure off, if something jiggled on those O-rings and slid one of those O-rings down, covering a supply port or an outlet port. So next video will be when I take this thing apart and see what's up in there. At least, you know, I got most of my fuel lines off, so it should be pretty easy. And we'll see what I bugged up in there.